So the big story in the NBA is the trade of Rondo to the Mavericks for basically spare parts. Some interesting spare parts, but spare parts nonetheless. Yeah. So basically a 1 and a 2, as well as Brandon Wright, who is shooting, by the way, 75% this year, shooting percentage of .748, and he plays minutes.
He's played
for Brandon Wright, Jae Crowder, Jameer Nelson, basically to make the salaries work. Now, what's significant for the Celtics is they get, in addition to the 1 and the 2, they get a gigantic trade exception, which is very valuable as they look to reconstruct the roster. So while this will be seen clearly as a win for the Mavericks, it is also, I think, very clearly a win for the Celtics. There is no difference in the NBA. In fact, it hurts you. 31 and 51, 36 and 46 is worse than 26 and 56. I mean, there's no value in it. The Celtics could conceivably, in a weakened East, have fought and clawed, and if they got no injuries and things went well, I suppose that could have been a number 8 seed.
Right, and you lose.
And you lose in the first round, but most likely out of the playoffs like last year with Rondo. He very clearly, while he would have listened to a contract deal with the Celtics and maybe ultimately would have signed, this was a guy who was going to explore being a free agent in the summer and probably would have gone somewhere else. So the Celtics, Danny Ainge did a terrific job, I think, bringing back the parts that he brought back.
Yeah.
But the focus now will be on the Mavericks, who being Mark Cuban and the Mavericks, and now having the bird rights to Rondo, and just in general, the great job, the salary cap circumventing rules that Mark Cuban does to get you to come to Dallas, the plush life that those players lead there, you would imagine that's a good place for Rondo to land. For the maybe it's a shorter term deal, a max contract, but for a shorter term to finish up with the maybe 1 or 2 years of real effectiveness that Dirk has left. But it's a pretty good starting 5.
Yeah. Well, you hit most of the heavy lifting there. Yeah. For the Boston thing, we'll see. We'll see over the next couple of years. But you had to do it. You got great use out of Rondo. You had a great, entertaining player for a couple of years who you won a championship with. So great. And now you let him move on. I mean, this Dallas team is going to be seriously good now. The question is, can Ellis allow someone else to hold the ball?
So let's go, Jay, what do you see as the starting 5 here? You maintain the best in the league.
Hands down the best starting 5 in the league. Dirk Nowitzki is the best shooter in the league. There is numbers to back that. He is the most consistent from every single place, every single spot on the court. And you have Rajon Rondo, who isn't that good of a shooter, but also has no problem putting up those games with 4 points, 15 assists, and 15 rebounders. He's a decent defender, actually more towards the better side of that spectrum of defense for point guards, and he is one of the best rebounding point guards. So give it a week, 2 weeks for him to get meshed into this offense.
Or you're giving him a whole week.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to give him... No, because I believe
not merciful.
I think it's going to be that fast of a transition.
Really?
That Rondo's going to fit in with this team because Boston had shooters. Not great shooters, not Dirk and Monta Ellis, but they still had decent shooters in that team, and Rondo was still distributing the ball and finding players with open looks. Now that player with an open look is going to be Dirk, and Dirk is not going to miss.
Right. So I think the question here really is, look, we know Dirk is going to fit in well. We know that Rondo is going to get Dirk the ball in the right spots. It's going to help extend Dirk's career, by the way, to play with a guy that he's going to have to do a little bit less to get some good shots off. So that's great. This is all about Ellis to me. Can he let go of the ball? And I don't know, because he's never really been coachable, right? Every team that he's been on, this is what he does. So if they can somehow manage that, and if they can get him to give it up and be more of a spot-up shooter instead of dribbling around forever and doing it, even though he hits the shots, then you're onto something. But that's the play here, I think.
We're all positive about things. The punditry is full of ignorance.
Don't tell the secret, Ben.
So we don't know. Like, here's what's good about the NBA, as we talked about earlier. The Spurs have proven continuity matters more than anything. Now, if there is one player in the league who seems less likely to disrupt continuity, it's Rondo.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care if he takes a shot.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not an issue generally. He's at 8 points and over 10 assists this year, nearly 11 assists. He's only shooting 41% this year, but he's a 47% career shooter, and theoretically that's what he'll go back to. Rondo is not a guy who has to score, and if you've watched some Celtic games this year, there are times at the end of the game where they almost seem to be clearing out for Rondo to get a bucket, and that's not his strength. So now you're looking at a starting five. You mentioned Ellis, and then you throw in Parsons, and then another guy who doesn't need the ball, Chandler, and Dirk, and Rondo, and that looks phenomenal. There's no question, but we don't know. And what you say about Ellis is exactly right. Maybe he doesn't work in this situation. If he does, he's probably a movable piece, and you could play somebody else who does work in that situation and work better.
By the way, last time Dirk won a championship, the one time he won a championship, he was also playing with a point guard that didn't care about scoring in Jason Kidd. So there are some similarities there. Kidd obviously was, I'm guessing, like something like 6 or 7 years older than Rondo is now, but the same type of game, a guy that put up numbers and could score 4 points and still have 10 rebounds and 12 assists.
I don't like Dallas because it's in Texas. And I don't
Your
like
old hatreds.
Yeah, totally. And they killed Kennedy. Okay. But I kind of like Cuban. It's been hard for me to dislike Cuban. You want him to shut up sometimes. Don't criticize the refs if you're an owner, and stay out of things if you're an owner. But we frequently, people who say dumb things get credit for speaking their mind. But he's not a dumb guy, and he says some interesting things. So I've liked him. I don't hate Dirk. He's one of the few Germans that talk about hating people for old things. He's one of the few Germans I like.
Name one other German. Give me one other German that you're big on.
That's it. It's one. Marlene Dietrich. Okay. So I don't. But that said, I love Rondo, man. I can't.
Yeah, he's
I don't know what kind of guy he is at all, but I love watching him play. And there are moments when you're like, he stole the ball, he got on the floor, he slid on his back, he knocked it from one hand to the other, he made the pass, he got the rebound, he got another steal, where you're just thinking, like, he fulfills, I think, a lot of fantasies of kids who weren't good enough to make it, who thought, this is the kind of player I would be without the fancy pat, but I'd get on the floor, I'd make a steal, I'd roll it around, I can help a team win because I can't shoot either.
And by the way, he does make the fancy play too. I mean, that's the cool thing.
The passes are unbelievable.
Yeah, so he does all the diving stuff and busts his ass, and then at the same time will do like a little fake behind the back thing and turns into a finger roll.
The biggest winner here, Dirk is obviously a big winner. I don't know about extending his career. I don't think that matters, but we'll see. But the big winner here, the guy who will benefit the most, at least in addition to Dirk, has got to be Chandler Parsons. Guys, true shooters, to have a true, great, skilled point guard. I mean, the upgrade from Jameer Nelson to Rajon Rondo is indescribable.
Yeah.
So this will make it interesting, and the incredibly stacked West just got a little more stacked.